Hello and welcome to the Bucket Lister podcast. Join your host Keith Crockford along with special guests who have travelled the world, here to share stories of their adventures and plenty of inspo to add to your bucket list. Now, let's get into today's episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Bucket Lister podcast. I am your host, Keith Crockford, and I'm back today chatting with Jake. Hello, Jake.
Hi, Keith.
How are you?
A little bit jet lagged. I only arrived the other day, so I'm still trying to get used to being back on UK time.
Well, and you're only back in the UK for a very short period of time before you fly out again on another trip. So,
yeah, I'm off tomorrow morning. So it's a really quick turnaround. I've managed to unpack the bag and repack it, but yeah, definitely prefer staying busy.
Don't lie, you haven't done your washing. You've just kept it all in there, thinking I'll use that again.
Maybe.
So thanks everyone for tuning in to this week's episode of the podcast. I'm going to be chatting with Jake in a second about his recent trip to India with our bucket list clients. And we're going to find out all about that. But if you have just found this podcast, you listen to this podcast regularly but haven't subscribed, when you finish this podcast, please go and click and subscribe it, because it does really, really help us out. And over the last couple of weeks, we've really started to see our podcast grow. And we want to have more people listen to it and give more people inspiration for their future trips. So please go ahead and subscribe to the podcast, because that will be great. So back to Jake. I'm sorry for everyone, but we are going to need to speak to him. Talk us through India then, Jake. Like a destination you've wanted to visit. I mean, we're going to get to the bit where you properly piss me off, because I was supposed to be on this India trip, and basically a load of other stuff came up, and I decided that I was going to stay in the UK and go and do destination show and other things as well. And then Jake took my place like the hero that he is and said, it's okay, I'll pack my bag, I'll go away, don't you worry. But yeah, we'll get to that point in a minute of why Jake really pissed me off on this trip. But rather than that bit, Jake, talk us through what it was all about. What was the trip? How was it? And if I think of any questions, I'll ask you on the way.
Well, it's always somewhere that's been on my bucket list. It was something that everybody I spoke to who's been to India was like, oh, you have to go to India. You have to go and experience it. You have to go and see what it's like. And, you know, lots of people say that it's a big culture shock. And I know that when I've been to Morocco, people have compared the souks to India. Or when I've done Kathmandu, people have compared that to India. So it was something that over the last few years of running trips, India has been like a recurring theme that's popped up with people talking about it. So it was always somewhere that I was really keen to go and experience it, because everybody says it's like Marmite. You either love it or you hate it. And a lot of that just comes down to, I think, people's experience of Delhi. But what was really cool about the trip that we did was we did get to see some of Delhi, and we got to explore Old Delhi and New Delhi, which was really cool. But we spent a lot of time out sort of in the foothills of the Himalayas and by the Ganges and doing loads of activities. So it was a really unique way to go and see India. We didn't go and see places like Mumbai or Jaipur or anything like that. It wasn't that kind of city tour trip. But I remember speaking to people on the plane back, and they were saying, oh, where did you get to go to? And I was talking about some of the places. And people going, that's so cool. Like, you know, the fact that you got to go and experience that, the fact that you got to go there, places that you wouldn't necessarily get to see if you were just doing like a 2-week city break around India, but really got a sense of what India is actually like, because it's such a vast country. So yeah, amazing trip. Still trying to get on board with all the things we actually did. I was thinking before this podcast, where shall I start? But there was so much that we covered in such a short space of time. So yeah, we did a lot.
Okay then. So talk us through, you left the UK, jumped on an aeroplane, direct flight through to India.
Yeah, that's quite a nice way that we did it, because you can, I had somebody meeting me in country, and they transited through Dubai, which is fine. Obviously it's how we get to Nepal, but it's really nice to be able to have a direct flight to Delhi. That was something that I really appreciated. Once you get on the plane, you know that when you get off, you don't have to worry about transiting. You just go through. We got met.
And what was that? How long was that flight from London
so that
to
flight
Delhi?
was about it's about 9 hours. Is the flight? So it's quite a long one, but we flew in the evening, so it was an overnight flight. So you were just able to sleep, which was quite a nice way to do it. When we were coming back, that's when we flew in the afternoon, sort of like 12:30. So that felt a little bit longer because you were awake for the entirety of it, and you landed at what felt like late evening, but actually it was sort of late afternoon in the UK. But definitely on the way there, you were just able to sleep for the majority of it, so the trip went quite quickly. We then landed in Delhi, and we met our sort of local guide who was there at the airport, holding up a big bucket list sign, which was great. And from there, I mean, grabbed our bags, jumped in the bus, went straight to the hotel in Delhi that we were staying at. And then once people had had a shower and freshened up, the best thing for us to do was to go straight into New Delhi and do a bit of sightseeing. And although it was a quick turnaround, everybody was really thankful for it because it forced you to not go to sleep, if that makes sense. It would have been all too tempting if we'd got to the hotel and everyone had a couple of hours just to relax, because you would have gone to sleep. But actually, the fact that we went straight out and started exploring, we sort of got onto their time zone really quickly, which was good. So we went around New Delhi.
Yeah, I mean, it's super similar to Nepal, isn't it? It's almost exactly the same. Like when you arrive in Kathmandu, like it's super easy to think, oh, I'm going to go to bed now, but actually, it's the worst thing you can do, isn't it?
It's the worst thing you can do, and it will knock you out for the duration of the trip. So you really want to kind of get over it there. And then we explored New Delhi. So we went and saw loads of cool things. I'm going to forget the official names of them, but there was the lotus flower. So there's the big building that looks like a lotus flower, which we went into, which was incredible. So we got to experience that. And then there's also a really, really tall man-made like tower. It's like an Islamic monument. I'll see if I can find the name for it because I'm terrible with remembering all of these names, but that was absolutely incredible. And what I didn't realize as well was just how much in India has been left by when the Mughals invaded and the British, and there's it's a country that's full of lots of culture from other places as well. So it really is a mix of things the British have left behind and things that the Mughal Empire have left behind, and that Islamic culture as well as the Hindu culture. So yeah, really vibrant city.
So how long then did you spend in Delhi before heading out?
So we spent the afternoon and one evening. So we had dinner, went to bed, and then we were off the following morning. And that's when we were going off to a place called Haridwar, which is where the camp was located that we were going to be staying at for, sort of the next week or so. So we actually got on a train, and I think it's something that everybody should experience in India, is getting a train across the country. Now, we didn't go into the carriage that was completely, stacked full of people, and it wasn't like a sleeper train. We did go for a carriage that was a little bit more open and had a bit more space. So it was a really lovely way to travel, but you got to see so much of the country. So that was quite a cool way to get there rather than taking a bus or a coach. So got the train journey across to Haridwar, and then we drove to our camp. And our camp, when I say camp, you might be thinking sort of just tents on the grass, but actually, really nice safari style tents and cottages and a swimming pool. So it was a really nice place to be. And that was on the banks of the River Ganges. So we were actually going to stay there for about 5 days and do loads of adventure activities. So we had whitewater rafting, ziplining, a day of hiking. There was also exploring the local town of Rishikesh, which is like a bit of a yogi central. So if you like your yoga, if you're into all of that kind of all of those things, then it's a great place to go. So we got an afternoon exploring the shops, and then we came back, and we did get to partake in an afternoon of yoga. and also a local cooking class. So we got to make the paratha and learn what goes into the curries that we were eating back at the camp. So it was a really packed week, full of different things.
So how was your yoga then, Jake? Like, are you more flexible than we assume, or were you sort of?
Well, I don't know how flexible you assume I am, but I'd say I'm one of the least flexible people, which is really bad. My mum's actually a yoga instructor and has been saying that I need to get into yoga for years, but it's not something I've really taken up. I should. It's supposed to be really good for you, but it was something that I'll tell a quick story. So one of the guys on the trip, and I won't name him, but one of the guys on the trip was adamant that he would not be doing the yoga. It was not for him. He wasn't really keen on it. And I sort of said to him, I said, well, this is almost the birthplace, or this is the birthplace of yoga. It's something that you have to experience while you're out here. And we did. So an afternoon, they brought in this yoga instructor and they laid out all the mats, and we were there, and we were going to do it on the beach by the River Ganges, but it was raining that day. So we actually did it indoors, but that would have been quite cool. And he walked away, and it was a bit of fun, but he walked away and was like, actually, that was really quite cool. It's something that you can say that you've done. So everyone did really enjoy it. It's something, I don't know whether I'm going to sign straight up to a class, but I wouldn't be opposed to doing it again. Well, you enjoyed the yoga in Morocco, didn't you?
I did enjoy the yoga. I do like a bit of yoga. I do find it very, very therapeutic. I mean, I think the thing with yoga for me is it's just a little bit slow for my liking. Like, I do enjoy it, but I think people go away and they get themselves in a meditative state while they're doing it. For me, I'm kind of like, when I'm in some of those positions, I'm counting down the seconds until I can get out of it again because it hurts so much. But I was
definitely like that at times. But it was nice that we did it at the end of the day because it had been quite a busy day with activities. So then to have that moment where everybody was just relaxing and calm, and it is that meditative state that you get into. But there were definitely a few positions where you're going, okay, hurry up. everything hurts now. Much more physical than I realized in some of them. I thought, oh, well, we would just be, lying down on the ground and doing a bit of stretching and relaxing, but no, definitely a lot more physical than you realize.
Yeah, like I say, I did our surf and yoga trip last year in Morocco, and getting up every morning and doing yoga was really nice. I quite enjoyed it, so I can see why you enjoyed it, Jake. So whitewater rafting, a bit of hiking, like a complete mixed range of activities there.
Total mix, yeah. Something in there for everybody. I mean, and to say that you've whitewater rafted down the Ganges is something that I think is very, very cool. One of the guys on the trip has done a lot of whitewater rafting. He's rafted the Zambezi. He's been looking at our whitewater rafting trip in Morocco. So he's done lots of trips like that, but it was definitely on his bucket list to say he'd whitewater rafted on the Ganges. The hiking trip was really cool because it wasn't just hiking in the mountains. There was also like a local school that we stopped by, and that was really brilliant. Being able to, see how their education system works in rural areas rather than just the city. And what I was quite amazed with actually was that you've got this little mountain village with about 10 kids going to this school, and it's all like open, almost like corrugated iron roofs, but it looks like a bus stop. Like it's all open. They weren't indoors or anything. But they've got these textbooks and they're all in English. So the entire textbook's in English. So they start by teaching the kids English so that they can learn, the material through the textbooks. And then they were following that. So we got invited to attend one of the classes. And, that was quite humbling because they threw a maths question up on the board and then, we were all looking at it and they're going, okay, so you can answer it now. And so we wanted a bit of fun trying to answer that, and the kids are laughing and all the rest of it. But yeah, that was a really nice nice day. And then we finished off the hiking and got back to the camp. Had a bit of rain come in on that day, but it wasn't too much of a problem. Just the rain happened to be a little bit late this year.
And in terms of fitness level, then, in who is this trip for? How fit do you need to be? Who can go on this trip? Obviously, you managed it, so that gives us some indication. But
yeah, well, I mean, you don't have to be at the top of human physical performance like myself to be able to do this trip. You know, it does help, but no, I'd say honestly, anybody can do this trip. It was one of the least physical trips that I've been on, and it was, everything was super accessible. Everything's tailored to you as a group. You can pick and choose what you want to do. Like, if you don't want to do the ziplining, you don't have to. If you don't want to do the whitewater rafting, there's no obligation, because everything operates out from that camp. So you can just stay there in the morning if you wanted to, and everyone's going to return back. The hiking was more of a sightseeing experience. It wasn't like a super strenuous hike through the mountains. And then the whitewater rafting, I wouldn't have said it was super physical, but it was a good adrenaline day out. I mean, even if you don't you're just sitting in a boat.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I always say that about whitewater rafting anyway, in terms of it was the feedback that I had from our whitewater rafting trip last year. People were saying, I thought it would be more physical than that. For the majority of when you're sat in a whitewater raft, you're not actually really doing anything apart from looking around. It's only when you get to a rapid section that they might make you back paddle forwards like a couple of strokes just to be able to. All you're doing really is maneuvering the boat. The river is taking you down in the raft. It's only actually the only time you paddle is to maneuver the boat, not to actually power it down.
No, and everyone loved that. We had somebody who'd never done whitewater rafting before, and then obviously we had that guy who had done loads of whitewater rafting and done the Zambezi, but he said this was excellent. And something that I wasn't expecting as well was the section that we rafted, the names of the rapids had been named by Edmund Hillary. So for anyone listening that knows about, mountaineering and Mount Everest, Edmund Hillary was, the first person to climb Everest and come back down. And, he actually spent a lot of time in India, and he named the rapids on the section that we were rafting down. So that was kind of cool as well, to feel like you're doing a bit of history.
Okay, then. So once you'd finished in the camp, then this is where I'm going to get annoyed now, but where did you head to next?
So after we finished in the camps, there was a few days there, like I said, with all the different cooking classes and yoga and whitewater rafting. It was brilliant. And then we went to the Jim Corbett National Park. So I'm going
to ask you a question now.
Okay.
Why is it, when you think about national parks, they're called the Ngorongoro, the Serengeti, why is it called the Jim Corbett National Park?
Oh, you're going to test my knowledge here. So based on the story that I remember, it's called the Jim Corbett National Park because he was one of the main figures at the time working on conservation and securing those areas. So he was like a really influential British figure. So they named the park after him. Now, I should remember more information, and I'll probably look that up. But yeah, that's kind of what I know from there was that he was a really influential person at the time. And something that was really interesting to hear from our local guides was, obviously everybody is aware of the British going into India and all the things that happened. One of the local guys was saying that something they're really thankful for that got left behind is the fact that when the British were over, they introduced national parks, and they mapped out plots of land that you weren't able to touch. So now they've been left with these really incredible sections that has become, perfect for wildlife and a bit of a safe space for tigers and other endangered species. And that's why it brings so much tourism in now, because it is completely untouched and they have just left it. So apart from obviously going and doing safaris during the day, so they've built a few paths and tracks, but we got on we got on like a little minibus that took us from Haridwar all the way through to Jim Corbett. So it was a full day. You know, it took us about 6 hours of driving, and we stopped off halfway to have some lunch. We took a packed lunch with us. That's one thing I will say to anyone listening who's heard horror stories of the food and all things like that. I mean, amazing food, but on this trip, it was always really clean and looked after, and the local guys were really like hot on what we ate. So if it was anything they weren't 100% sure on, they were like, no, don't eat from here, don't drink this. So yeah, we had a packed lunch on that day. And then when we got in, you know, absolutely beautiful resort. So incredible place. And we had dinner there around a restaurant, and then sat out by the campfire. And then, yeah, just prepped for the following day. So it was going to be an early start, but we had 2 safaris. So we had the morning safaris, so up nice and early, where we did one section of the national park. And then the afternoon, we drove about 45 minutes to an hour and did the second section of the national park. So we split it into 2 safaris, if you like. Now, one thing I would say, India in January is a lot colder than you think it's going to be, or at least it's a lot colder than I thought it was going to be. Having been out to Thailand about 6 weeks prior, I was kind of expecting it to be closer to that temperature than the UK. So I brought lots of pairs of shorts and T-shirts. I was wearing all of my clothes when we went and did the safari. You're in these open top Jeeps. So yeah, definitely take a hat, definitely take a big jacket just for that morning, because it's going to be quite fresh. But we went around the first section. We saw lots of deer in the morning. We didn't really see much else in that area. It was quite an incredible drive with the sun rising. But apart from monkeys and deer, we didn't really see too much. So we got back and we had some lunch, and you know, the group were going, oh, that was a great morning, but a bit of a shame we didn't see much. We then went out in the afternoon, and within 10 minutes of entering the national park, our driver and our guide was pointing something in the distance. And as we watched it sort of crashing through the forest, it's like, what is that? And so it was a sloth bear. And it's like, that is far rarer to see than a tiger. So you guys got incredibly lucky. Within the first 10 minutes, we'd seen this sloth bear. So we sort of stayed and we were listening to that. And then the guide was saying that there's a tiger that sort of not controls, but sort of tends to be in that area. And they were waiting to see if he would come and chase away the sloth bear. So we waited for a while, and then we continued around. So more deer, more monkeys. But it got to the end of the day and we were going, well, we haven't seen anything. And the guy was like, look, it's just one of those things. It's probably not to be. So we'll do the last thing. And he was really looking, you know, he was listening to all the bird calls, and he was like, there's a tiger up on that ridge. We just can't see it, but I can hear all the animals calling and warning and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, we'll go down this path, and then we'll call it a day. So everyone's like, oh, okay, all right, well, it is what it is. You never guaranteed anything. So we start driving down this track, and we're not going particularly fast. And we're sort of looking, everyone's looking left to right, sort of scanning. And myself and the guide, and we were really, and I cannot stress how close we were to the side of this road where there's these bushes. So the guide and I happened to look left at the same time. And as I looked left, I've got this way bigger than I imagined, this huge head looking back at me, and there's a tiger just lying in this, you know, sort of in like a gap in the bush, and he's staring through it back, and I'm almost eye level. Like, that's how close, less than 4 feet away from this tiger, and he's just staring at us. And the guide goes, tiger, and the driver looks, and then the wheels spin as the driver's panicked. So we've shot off, and everyone's going, wow, that was amazing. That was so close. So we turned the Jeep around and we said, right, we're going to drive by slowly again, and we'll see if it's bothered. And I'm going, okay. So that moment you realise how little protection the Jeeps have got, like they are completely open. So we drove slowly back past the tiger, and he was completely unbothered. So we then sort of stopped, and again, really close, less close than the first time, but still really close. Started taking some pictures and some videos, and I did actually post some of these pictures and videos. So if you are wondering about the experience, you can go and find it on our Instagram page. But yeah, there was a moment where we're taking a video of this tiger, and then he just starts to move towards us. So you get like a little bit nervous. And then we waited and we watched, and he finally had enough and came out the bush and walked up the road. But there was no way I would have expected to get so close. And even the guide said that that's the closest encounter he's had in years to a tiger. It was fantastic. So once I got back, I messaged. I didn't even message you. I think I just sent you a picture because I knew
you just sent me the video.
I knew you were in meetings.
No, I can't remember where I was.
You were at the event.
Yeah, I was at a conference.
Event.
I was at a conference.
Yeah. And I remember sending this picture, and the response back was.
Yeah, I mean, like I've tried to, like, and what you were saying then is, there is no gap. You go on safari, okay. Like, I will put my hand on heart and say, if you go on a Tanzanian safari, like, I'm 97% sure you will spot the big five on our safari. That's definitely not the same for spotting a tiger in the wild. And I've tried so many times in Nepal, in Chitwan, to see the tiger. And it was one reason why I really wanted to go on this India trip, because it is one of the animals that I haven't yet been able to photograph and would really love to have that opportunity to photograph one. Jake's pictures are okay, but mine would have been a whole lot better if I had been there.
When you did put up that post saying, I should have been out there and Jake stole my tiger. But as I said, if you want a job doing properly, I mean, you send Jake Field. Well, that's why you're going out.
I mean, you get to see it, but
So it was totally one of those moments where, the last track of the day, we'll do the last run. If we don't see anything, fine. And then we're coming out, and the guy's going, well, we've really got to go now because they're going to shut the gate. We are supposed to leave the national park by this time. So we come out in the sun setting. So they want everybody out before dark. So then as we're going, we hear all of these elephants trumpeting. And we stopped and we were listening to that. And the guy was saying, well, there's probably a tiger that's nearby, and all the elephants are warning because they've got babies and they're warning about the tiger. So that was quite incredible. And then we see an elephant, this Asian elephant charging out of the bush, who spotted us, and he sort of does this like dummy charge towards us. But that was incredible. And then the guys go, right, we've really got to go now. So we started driving back towards the gate, and then the driver slams on the brakes again. And up in the trees, we'd seen this Indian hornbill, which is not something that I'd heard of or I really knew much about. But if you're a bird watcher, if you're a spotter, then they are like the tiger of the bird world, he was saying. So he was like, yeah, I can't believe what you guys have just seen in the last half an hour. So then we did. We did start going for the gate, and the driver starts to stop again because he's seen a peacock. And I went, no, don't worry, we've got those in the UK. you can carry on. That's fine.
So then, where did you head to? I mean, obviously, that must have been amazing for everyone. Like, it's a once in a lifetime, I think, thing to see a tiger in its natural habitat. That would have really been a highlight for me if I had been on the trip, and I imagine it was the same for everybody else, wasn't it?
It was a huge highlight for everybody. They were all really understanding that there isn't any guarantee. So we were going out and we were just hoping for the best, but yeah, just keeping our fingers crossed. And we did get incredibly lucky. One of the things that was so special about that moment was, as you said, because they are in the wild. So the national park holds about 300 or 350 odd tigers, but it's such a huge area. There's no guarantee that they're going to be in those places at that time. And they are completely left to roam. I mean, one of the things I noticed as we were coming out of the national park was there's no big fence around it. So I said to the guy, well, there's not like a big fence. And he said, no, it's a completely wild space. We can't fence around it because it's just so massive. I said, okay, but there's a village here. Like, you know, and he said, yeah, well, sometimes the tigers will come out and they'll take like a cow or a sheep or, you know, whatever it is. I couldn't believe that. I said, well, what do the locals think? And so, oh, they all think the tigers are quite cool, actually, so they don't mind it as much. But yeah, totally in a wild. Now, although they're sort of used to seeing people, they are still completely wild. So you definitely felt that when you were face to face with a tiger, and you were going, oh, we are quite exposed. And you just wanted to be quite quiet and respectful. But like I say, huge highlight. We then left the Jim Corbett National Park, and we came all the way back by train to Delhi. We had a night in Delhi, went out for an amazing dinner. And then the following day, this is another big highlight for people. So we added on, we had time in the itinerary. We added on the Taj Mahal and the Red Fort in Agra. So we woke up early the following day and we went to Agra, and we got to go around the Taj Mahal, which it's really hard to put it into words how it makes you feel, because I'd seen pictures and I knew that it was going to be an impressive building. And maybe that's a way of downplaying it. It was, it's just a very impressive building. But you get there and it completely dominates the landscape around it. You can see it for miles and miles and miles because everything's relatively flat nearby. And when you went in, I mean, it's an incredible feat of architecture. It's, you know, a mausoleum. It's a declaration of love. Like, it's all of these things. It's quite incredible. And we happened to go on the day of Shah Jahan's death, the anniversary of his death. So Shah Jahan's the guy that commissioned the Taj Mahal to be built for his wife. So we actually got to go and see the actual coffins and tomb underneath the Taj Mahal, which is normally 364 days of the year, as far as I'm aware, completely blocked off to the public. And they opened it that day so people could pay tribute. So we did get rushed through a little bit. It was much busier than it would have been on a normal day. But because we went in the morning, we still had quite a quiet experience, relatively. And then we explored the Red Fort. We learned all about the history of that before heading back to Delhi. So we just did Agra for the day. You can.
And how long did that take you then from Delhi? Because obviously this is not something we originally included in the itinerary. I know we've spoken about it since and looked at like adding that in, because obviously that is a bucket list tick for many people to go. And obviously, you know, it could be included as an optional extra into our tour. That not everybody, you know, it might be that you've already been to the Taj Mahal and don't want to go again and want to explore Delhi more. But how long did it take you then to get down on you went on the train from Delhi down to there?
We went on the train, which is a great way to go and get about India. The trains are very cool. It took us 2 hours approximately to travel from Delhi to Agra. I think we were concerned at the beginning with the itinerary when you and I were looking at it with, you know, we have got a limited amount of time and we are doing a lot of traveling, and we do still want to explore Delhi. And what we did was we did half a day on the first day and we did half a day of Delhi on the day that we got back from Jim Corbett. We went and did another half day in Delhi. And that was rickshaw rides and the old spice markets, and that was all fantastic. So lots of people have come back with enough curry powder to last them the rest of their lives. Yeah, and never going to need to go and buy that again. So that's why we were concerned about doing it. But it was 2 hours to travel there by train, and then basically a full day sightseeing. And then we got the late afternoon train back, which then got us into Delhi for sort of early evening. And then we went for dinner. So it was a long final day, but everyone was quite happy to do it because we knew we were going to be on a plane the following day. So it was something they were prepared to do less in Delhi and see the Taj Mahal and the Red Fort.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a bucket list tick for a lot of people, isn't it? And I know when we were originally putting the itinerary together for that trip, it was, well, we can't do everything, and that wasn't about what it was. But from the sounds of it now, you know, with a bit of a tweak to the itinerary, we can fit a bit more into that trip. And I know that you're looking at another trip to India as well, in more of a style of a best of trip to India as well that we discussed. So that'll be really cool as well.
I think it's really important to note that this trip is, you know, there are still places in India that you could go back to. And I think with most of our trips, we try and make it that you don't feel the need to go back. With with India, it's such a big country that there's definitely places that you could go back to. We didn't do Mumbai, we didn't do Jaipur, or Jakarta. Those aren't places that we did. However, the experience of whitewater rafting on the Ganges, seeing the local, mountain towns, all of that was what this trip was about. The safaris, that's what this trip was about.
Seeing Jake do yoga.
If that's on your bucket list, there's not too.
That would be on my bucket list.
The thing is, I wanted to see you doing the yoga in Morocco, but somehow those videos seem to have vanished. But I will find them. But I think so. What I was
they're on my OF.
There was one guy who has travelled with us on a few trips, and for him, so the Taj Mahal was going to be a no-brainer. So he is working towards doing all 7 man-made wonders of the world. Okay, and 5 of them you can do with us. So we were looking at it. So obviously the Taj Mahal in India. So he got to tick that one off. He's done Machu Picchu with us as well. I took him to Machu Picchu last year. We also offer the Christ the Redeemer in Brazil. We do Petra in Jordan. We do. Hang on, what are the others?
Great Wall of China.
Great Wall of China. So those are the 5 that we do, and then the last ones that we don't offer. There's the Colosseum. But it's not really our style at the moment. And then I'm going to struggle to pronounce it. Chichen Itza.
That's it.
So that's 7. So 5 that we offer. So for him, it was fantastic for him to be able to be ticking those off with us. So if you've got those or man-made wonders of the world, I would definitely say you can start to plan your trips around exploring those with us.
Yeah, and maybe we need to look at. Like, I know quite a lot of people have mentioned Mexico to me before for a trip, and they want to go to Chichen Itza. And then obviously we could do just a quick trip to the Colosseum just to say you can take all 7 off with us. But maybe we could go via Ferrata in the Italian Dolomites, but just add in a quick trip to the Colosseum. Like that could be one way of getting around that.
It's funny because you might have forgotten about this, but a couple of months ago we were having a conversation. It's one of the projects on my laptop. There's a little folder of a trip to the Dolomites. Is something that we were in the process of discussing. There's a bunch of.
We could spend every day discussing new trips, Jake. It's not a problem. Discussing new trips is not an issue. No. It's the work that goes into them and then actually getting them live. That's the bit that takes the time. But
we're not short of ideas.
We're definitely not short of ideas. I need more podcasts to record. So the more new trips we do gives me more material for podcasts. So that's great. But anyway, so if that India trip sounds like something that you would be interested in, then I'll put a link to the trip in the show notes for this, and you can go and have a look and see if it would suit you. Obviously, we are going to be changing it slightly with that Taj Mahal bit as well. So the itinerary that's on there at the minute, once Jake actually gets back into the country for more than 36 hours, we'll get that changed. Jake, you're flying off again tomorrow. You're heading out to Morocco. We've got 2 trips heading out there tomorrow. We've got our Sahara Desert Trek, which Dave's leading, and then you're heading out on our Mount Toubkal winter trip. Now, there has been some snow over the last few days, which is great because there is now some snow on top because there was a little bit of a shortage. So, that's good news for Jake's trip, but it's also good news for my whitewater rafting trip next month, because that is a snowmelt river, and with some more snow, we should have some better water. So I'm going to get Jake back on in a couple of weeks' time, and we've done podcasts on Mount Toubkal, but we've never done one yet actually on the winter variation of the trip. So it would be great to come in, and obviously, Jake, you've done it in summer loads of times. You haven't been out and done this side of the itinerary yet. So it would be nice to kind of get your perspective on the differences from our standard Toubkal trek, which isn't when we say it's our standard Toop Cow trek, it's not the standard Toop Cow trek, because ours is 4 days, whereas you're heading out and doing a sort of more of a 5-6 day trek on this one. So it'd be interesting to hear what you've got to say about those. But Jake, thanks for giving up some time between washing your clothes and packing. Have a great trip out in Morocco, and we'll be back. I'll be back next week with another episode, but we'll speak to Jake again in a few weeks' time to chat about Morocco. So thanks ever so much for listening. Hope you found this episode interesting, and I will see you all next week. Thanks very much. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Bucket Lister podcast. Be sure to click follow to be alerted for next week's episode. For more travel inspiration, check us out at www.thebucketlistcompany.co.uk or follow us on socials. See you next time.